The young mistress had been married for 3 years without conceiving. She personally forced me to drink the potion and sent me to the young master's bed. But once I became pregnant, the young mistress grew consumed by jealousy. She violently stabbed my abdomen with a golden hairpin. Why can a lowly concubine like you conceive, while I cannot? When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the night I was forced to drink the medicine. This time, I climbed onto the master's bed of my own accord. If I was going to sleep with him, I was going to sleep with the big one. Chapter 1. The doctor had just left when a teacup was thrown at me. Warm blood trickled down my brow. A pool of crimson spread before my eyes. But I knelt on the ground, dared not move an inch. Impressive. Just 1 month. And this worthless womb is already carrying a seed? Shinchiyu's embroidered shoes crushed my fingers. The pain made me see stars. But I dared not pull my hand away. Please spare me. Madam. Once the child is born, I'll leave the estate immediately and never return. Leave the estate? Shinchiyu suddenly covered her mouth and laughed. You were making love to the master in his bed, your moans echoing throughout the courtyard. You just want to be his concubine, don't you? Her voice suddenly grew sharp. Now that the opportunity has come, you say you want to leave the mansion? Do you think I'm a fool? Before she finished speaking, the golden hairpin in her hand had already pierced deeply into my abdomen. She twisted it violently, venting her anger, as if she wanted to tear my internal organs to pieces. Why? Shinchiyu gasped for breath, her eyes red as blood. Why can a lowly concubine like you give birth? But I can't? The golden hairpin pierced deeper. Die. You worthless concubine. Die. Shinchiyu's face twisted into a hideous grimace. In the agonizing pain of death, I mustered my last ounce of strength and reached out to gouge out her left eye. Plop! A sticky sensation spread from my fingertips. I crushed a ripe grape. Ah! My eye! Shinchiyu let out a piercing scream and released her grip on the golden hairpin. Warm liquid sprayed across my face. In the final moment before my consciousness faded, I heard Shinchiyu's hysterical screams. Someone! Quickly get a doctor! Hurry! I clenched the sticky substance in my hand, my lips curling slightly. How perfect! I took one of her eyes with me before I died. When I opened my eyes again, the familiar bed curtains, the familiar incense, and that burning heat rising from my bones. I bit my tongue hard, the pain keeping me barely conscious. It was that night. I was reborn. Yinxing stood by the bed, a cold smile on her lips. She raised her hand and blew out the candle, plunging the room into darkness. This was Shinchiyu's rule. The young master was not allowed to see the face of the maid who served him. Others said that Zhao Zhiheng and Shinchiyu were a heavenly couple, harmonious and in love. If Shinchiyu had not been childless for 3 years, he would never have touched another woman. But only I knew. It was all a lie. Zhao Zhiheng was a pervert. In my previous life, all his depraved desires were directed at me. Silver needles pierced my fingertips. Thin ropes cut into my flesh. The scorching wax from candles dripped onto my body. Every single one of those tortures made me wish I were dead. But Shinchiyu believed I was the object of his adoration. So much so that even the maidservants envied me. Especially Yinxing. She would exaggerate everything in front of Shinchiyu, claiming I spent every night with him, driving the young master mad with desire. Yinxing, come here. I suddenly spoke, my voice weak as if I were delirious from the drugs. Yinxing paused, then approached me without any guard. Now. I suddenly reached out and grabbed her neck. Ugh. Yinxing's eyes widened as she struggled desperately, her nails leaving several bloody scratches on my arm. I grabbed the jade pillow nearby and smashed it hard against her head. Thud. Yinxing's body went limp, and she collapsed to the ground. I panted heavily. quickly stripping off Yingxing's outer garments and swapping them with my own, then dragged her onto the bed. The potion's effects were growing stronger. My body was on fire, and the scene before me began to blur. When I finally managed to rush out the door, footsteps echoed at the end of the corridor. Zhao Zhiheng pushed open the door and entered the room. Soon, heavy breathing and Yingxing's muffled moans filled the air. My lower abdomen burned intensely. My legs trembled, and I could barely stand. Even if I escape today, Xinqiu will never let me go. If that's the case, if I'm going to sleep, I'll sleep soundly. I pulled out the hairpin and stabbed it into my palm with all my strength. The intense pain brought me back to my senses for a moment. I stumbled and turned into the end of the corridor. That was the courtyard of Master Zhao Gaolang. I pushed open the door. Steam filled the air. Zhao Gaolang was bathing. I tore open my undershirt and hid under the silk quilt. The sound of water stopped abruptly, and I clutched the corner of the quilt tightly. This was my only chance. Zhao Gaolang was 35 years old. After his first wife died in childbirth, he had taken 2 more wives. Strangely, none of those women lived past 2 years. People in the village said he was cursed to kill his wives. Over time, he gave up on the idea of remarrying. Only I knew that this man, who appeared to be a self-disciplined widower in the eyes of others, harbored a terrifying desire deep within him. He was obsessed with young girls. Yet he clung to the ridiculous moral constraints of his upbringing. Over the years, he channeled all his energy into martial arts training. The bed curtains were pulled aside. Zhao Gaolang stood naked from the waist up, droplets of water rolling down his well-defined abdominal muscles. The scar running from his collarbone to his waist resembled a fierce centipede. When he saw me on the bed, he flew into a rage. "Who let you in here? Get out!" Seeing him about to shout for help, I pulled back the silk blanket. The young girl's snow-white skin was fully exposed. I knew where my advantage lay. In my previous life, Zhao Zhiheng had been unable to resist my body. How much more so now that Zhao Gaolang had been abstaining for so long? His eyes turned red instantly. "Master." As I trembled and pressed against him, his muscular body tensed instantly. His rough palm pressed against my body. "You can still back out now." Zhao Gaolang's voice was hoarse and terrifying. His Adam's apple bobbed violently. I seized his wrist. I guided his calloused hand to my chest. I tilted my face upward, and a tear fell just in time. "Please. Please spare your servant." Zhao Gaolang's breathing grew heavy. I could clearly feel the heat at my thighs. His hands gripped my waist with such force it felt like he was trying to crush my bones. The world spun. I was thrown roughly onto the bed. The peony curtains warmed the spring night. He was like a wild beast that knew no satisfaction, tossing and turning me relentlessly. I cried until my voice was hoarse, my nails leaving countless bloody marks on his back. It wasn't until the 3rd watch of the night that he finally fell asleep. Sated. I forced myself to get up, my body aching and weak, my legs trembling so much I could barely stand. Moonlight filtered through the window curtains, illuminating the splotches of blood on the bed. I tiptoed into the guest room. Sure enough, Zhao Zhiheng was nowhere to be seen. He was always like this, no matter how late he stayed out. He would always return to sleep with Xinqiu. What a loving couple they were. I lit the candlestick. The room was once again illuminated. Yingxing lay on the bed like a piece of torn cloth. Her body was covered in bruises, not an inch of skin untouched. And there was an iron ball stuffed between her legs. Zhao Zhiheng found her unresponsive, like a piece of wood, so he tortured her in various ways. Yingxing woke up in excruciating pain. Then she fainted again in the agony. "Wake up." I leaned over and slapped Yingxing's face. The moment she opened her eyes and saw me, she lunged toward me. "You bitch. You're the one who did this to me. All of this should have been your punishment." I'll tell the young mistress. And she'll. Go ahead and tell her. I laughed softly. The candlelight cast an eerie shadow on my face. Do you know what happened to the maids who served the young master before? She trembled all over, her lips quivering. But I was tricked by you. It was supposed to be you who served him. Her voice grew faint and barely audible. Clearly, she wasn't sure herself anymore. I leaned closer to her ear, my voice calm. When Donglan died, her nails were all pulled out because the young mistress discovered scratches on the young master's back. Chun Mei was even worse. She did nothing wrong. But because the young master looked at her twice, the young mistress had her genitals sewn shut with a sewing needle. I was not the first maid Shen Qiyu had sent to Zhao Zhiheng. No one had survived long enough to become pregnant. I deliberately made myself ugly and stupid to survive. But I never expected Shen Qiyu to take a liking to my stupidity. She personally forced me to drink the poison and sent me to Zhao Zhiheng's bed. But when I really became pregnant, Shen Qiyu went mad again. She was jealous that I could give birth, while she couldn't. So she had me killed. Snapping back to reality, I gently wiped the cold sweat from Yingxing's forehead. Do you think the young mistress will do to a maid who has been touched by the young master? Snap! The candle wick suddenly burst into a flame. Splattering wax landed on Yingxing's hands. She trembled violently, her body shaking uncontrollably. I leaned close to her ear, but now. You have a chance to live. Tao Hong. She grabbed my wrist, her nails digging deeply into my flesh. We entered the mansion together at 8 years old. You. Save me. My gaze fell on her abdomen. If there's the young master's child in there. My fingertips traced a circle gently. Tell me, could the mistress lay a finger on you then? The fear in her eyes gradually gave way to greed. But her expression still hesitated. But what about the mistress? Shoo. I pressed my index finger against her lips. If you don't say anything, I won't either. Who would know that you're the one serving the young master? Once you're pregnant, we'll ask the young master to decide then. Yingxing clutched my collar tightly. Why are you doing this? Before she could finish, she suddenly stopped, her nostrils twitching. She was sniffing the scent on my body. I took the opportunity to pull open my collar, revealing the ambiguous bruises on my neck. I already have someone I love. I trailed off, lowering my eyelashes. Disgusting. She spat, but her tense shoulders had already relaxed. I knew Ginkgo too well. She was thinking, now that I have this over you, you pose no threat. The candlelight flickered between us. We had finally reached an agreement. Shen Qiyu's gaze swept over my neck, where the bruises were still visible. She was consumed by jealousy and poured the scalding tea over me, leaving red marks where it landed. I bit my tongue, unable to utter a sound. You slut! Keeping these lewd marks, are you trying to seduce someone? She tore open my collar, but her movements suddenly halted. All I could see were the crisscrossing whip marks covering my body. These were from the whip I had used on myself last night. What? What's going on? Shen Qiyu's voice suddenly changed. I trembled as I knelt on the ground. Last night, the young master whipped the servant with a horsewhip and said. I choked out the words at the right moment. He said this servant's worthless body isn't even worthy of carrying the young mistress's shoes. Shen Qiyu's lips curled into a smile. Did he really say that? The young master only has eyes for the young mistress. I pretended to break down, clutching the hem of her skirt. Please don't make me serve him again, mistress. Zhao Jifeng's voice came from the doorway. I quickly pulled my clothes together and retreated into the shadows. Zhao Zhiheng didn't even glance at me kneeling on the ground, instead walking straight toward Shen Qiyu at the dressing table. That maid last night was nothing but bad luck. He impatiently pulled open his collar. Like a stake of wood, She doesn't understand the slightest bit of romance. Standing nearby, Yingxing couldn't help but tremble as she held the copper basin. Hot water splashed onto the embroidered surface of her shoes. But she didn't even notice. Xinqiu smiled sweetly and leaned in, her fingertips lightly brushing against Zhao Zhiheng's chest. My lord, please don't be angry. I'll find you someone more knowledgeable and considerate. My lady. Zhao Zhiheng gripped her wrist, his voice gentle. No one can compare to you. Xinqiu lowered her eyelids at the right moment. It's all my fault for being so useless. I can't bear you an heir. Before she could finish, Zhao Zhiheng suddenly picked her up horizontally. Xinqiu let out a startled cry, her arms instinctively wrapping around his neck. A breeze blew past the window. Camellia flowers fell softly. I pulled the resentful Yingxing back out of the room. As soon as we turned the corner of the corridor, we heard heavy breathing and the creaking of the wooden bed from the inner chamber. Yingxing's nails dug deeply into my arm. It's not even dark yet. I smiled lightly and brushed a hibiscus flower petal off Yingxing's shoulder. The young master and young mistress are truly deeply in love. I lowered my voice. Unfortunately, no matter how vibrant the hibiscus blooms, it will never bear fruit. The resentment in Ginkgo's eyes gradually gave way to a resolute determination. Xinqiu had been lulled to sleep. Her eyebrows and eyelashes were filled with the lazy contentment of satisfaction. She smiled at me for the first time, twirling a golden seed between her fingertips and offering it to me. Tao Hong, you're a sensible girl. You may go home to visit for a few days. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were filled with venom. How are your parents? I heard your younger brother just entered the county school. I knelt down with a thud. I'll do whatever the young mistress says. She smiled in satisfaction. Good girl. Once you're pregnant, I won't treat you badly. I hid the emotions in my eyes. If I get pregnant, I'll die. If I don't, my whole family will die. Since we're all going to die anyway, I might as well take a few more with me. Late at night, I wrapped myself in a cloak and slipped into the alley behind the drunken immoral pavilion. The stench of rotten water filled the air. Donglan's older sister, Xiaolian, was peeling lotus seeds, her fingers swollen and white from soaking in water. I pulled out the blood-stained handkerchief, which contained Donglan's fingernails that had been pulled out. Xiaolian's tears fell onto the lotus seeds. She must have been in terrible pain before she died. I gripped her hand tightly. I want revenge. Is there any medicine that can make a man addicted? She suddenly looked up, her almond-shaped eyes mirroring Donglan's. You're crazy. That's not something to play with. I gave a bitter smile. Do I have any other choice? She remained silent. She pulled out a box from her bosom. As the box opened, a sweet, intoxicating fragrance filled the air. This is the heart-binding pill. Take one every month, and your skin will emit a strange fragrance. Men who smell it will become obsessed. Xiaolian choked back tears as she pressed my hand. But you'll never be able to have children, and you'll eventually die from blood deficiency. Tao Hong, you're only 16. I swallowed the pill directly, and it dissolved on my tongue. Sister, people like us were never meant to live a peaceful life. 3 days later, Xinqiu summoned me and handed me a bowl of thick black herbal soup. Go serve the young master tonight. Make sure you conceive a child. I bowed my head and drank it all in one gulp. A bitter taste rose in my throat. When Yingxing escorted me to the room, she could no longer contain herself. She twisted her waist and sat down by the bed. The young master is coming soon. You should leave now. I caught the faint sweet scent on her body. The heart-binding pill is such a precious thing. I must prepare a dose for Yingxing as well. This time, you must seize the opportunity. I blew out the candle. The room was pitch black. As soon as I reached the corner, I heard sounds coming from inside. The man's heavy breathing mixed with the woman's soft cries. The bed creaked. It was intense. I sneered silently and turned toward Zhao Gaolang's courtyard. As soon as I pushed the door open, I was suddenly pulled inside by a strong force. Zhao Gaolang pressed me against the door. The smell of alcohol hit my face. His eyes burned with desire, and his hands had already slipped into my collar. "Why did you come now, master?" I feigned resistance, but he picked me up and threw me onto the bed. He hadn't been with a woman in a long time. The last time he had sex, he had tasted the sweetness and couldn't get enough. I deliberately responded to him, using all the techniques I had learned at the Drunken Immortal Pavilion over the past few days, causing his breathing to grow heavier. We continued until the early hours of the morning. As the first light of dawn broke, he traced the strands of my hair scattered around me, his nose gently brushing against my neck. "Little vixen, you smell so good. What's your name?" I answered softly. "Peach Blossom." He squeezed my waist with his hands. "Which mistress's maid are you?" "The mistress's maid." His expression suddenly changed, and he pushed me away forcefully. "Get out!" I knelt on the ground, naked, my eyes red as I looked up at him. This servant has admired the master for a long time. I only wished to serve the master. His hand, which was tying his sash, paused, and his eyes darkened. "Even if no one else can know? Are you willing?" "I am willing." I crawled forward on my knees, looking pitiful. "As long as I can follow you, anything is fine." His eyes darkened, and he roughly pulled me toward him. We did it again on the cold floor. Over the past month, I sneaked into Zhao Gaolang's room every few days. He particularly enjoyed the thrill of this illicit affair. The dark circles under his eyes grew deeper. Yet he still couldn't get enough. Tonight, he even dared to sneak into the servants' quarters. He ravaged me on my narrow wooden bed. He panted heavily, biting my earlobe. "Little demon, did you drug me? Why can't I ever get enough?" I pretended to be shy, burying my face in his chest. In truth, I hid a cold smile at the corner of my mouth. Yes, I did drug him. A poison that could kill him. The box on the vanity was already empty. Inqing's face was as rosy as a peach blossom. Today, I could smell the scent on her body, even more intense than before. I heard that Zhao Zhiheng has been using the excuse of studying hard lately, often staying in the study. He hasn't entered Shinchiyu's room for many days. Shinchiyu looked at Zhao Zhiheng's increasingly emaciated body and felt deeply heartbroken. Various tonic soups are being served one after another. I wonder what her face will look like when Shinchiyu finally finds out the truth. I withdrew my gaze and gently stroked Zhao Gaolang's Adam's apple. Her voice was soft and delicate. "Master." "More." A look of obsession flashed in Zhao Gaolang's eyes. He turned over and pressed down on her again. Outside the window, the sound of the water clock grew louder. I knew it was time to act. Inqing was caught in bed with Shinchiyu. That day, Shinchiyu was going to the Guanyin temple on the outskirts of the city to pray for blessings. Inqing used the excuse of catching a cold to stay behind at the mansion. However, shortly after leaving, I clumsily spilled the tea. The green tea splashed onto Shinchiyu's apricot-colored skirt, leaving a stain. "Fool! Go back to the mansion and change." She slapped me across the face, and my cheek burned with pain. As Shinchiyu approached the door, a giggle echoed from inside the room. "Master, this is the young mistress's bed." Inqing's voice was laced with seduction. "What are you afraid of? You're better than that barren hen." Zhao Zhiheng's breathing grew heavy. Through the crack in the door, I saw Inqing's snow-white body wrapped around Zhao Zhiheng. "Once I'm pregnant, will you really ask the young mistress for me?" "Of course. If you perform well today, becoming a concubine is possible. Come, let me touch you. I've missed you so much." Xinqiu could no longer contain herself. She was so angry that her whole body trembled. And she kicked the door open with all her strength. Bang! A loud noise echoed. The two on the bed were startled. Zhao Zhiheng rolled and crawled off the bed. Yinxing's snow-white body was exposed to everyone, covered in red marks from their passionate encounter. "You slut! How dare you betray me!" Xinqiu grabbed Yinxing's hair and slammed her head against the bedpost. "Mistress! Please spare me!" Ah! The skin on Yinxing's forehead split open. Blood trickled down, forming crimson blossoms on her snow-white skin. She turned to Zhao Zhiheng for help. "Master! Save your servant!" To her surprise, Zhao Zhiheng was eager to please Xinqiu. "Madam, it was this slut who seduced me. I'm innocent." Yinxing stared at Zhao Zhiheng in disbelief. "Master." She never imagined that the man who had been passionately entangled with her just moments ago would now turn on her so ruthlessly. "Shut up! Do you think you can call me master?" Zhao Zhiheng rushed forward and slapped Yinxing several times. His blows were hard. Yinxing's face swelled up in an instant. Xinqiu laughed softly. She pulled a golden hairpin from her hair and handed it to Zhao Zhiheng. "Husband, use this to slash this slut's face." Zhao Zhiheng took the hairpin, his fingertips trembling slightly. But he still aimed it at Yinxing's face. Yinxing recoiled in terror. "No, don't." Just then, her gaze suddenly fell on me by the door. A fleeting glimpse of clarity flashed in her eyes, as if she wanted to say something. But Zhao Zhiheng slashed her cheek with the hairpin. Ah! Yinxing's face was instantly covered in blood and flesh. She let out a heart-wrenching scream. But Zhao Zhiheng remained unmoved, continuing to slash relentlessly, until Xinqiu smiled in satisfaction. He finally lowered the golden hairpin, looking down at Yinxing with cold eyes. "You worthless woman. Don't blame me. Reincarnate into a better life next time." Yinxing suddenly sprang up. She bit down on Zhao Jifeng's groin. With a tearing sound, she tore off a chunk of flesh. Blood spattered onto the peony-patterned canopy. It mingled with the traces of their earlier lovemaking. "Ha ha ha ha." Yinxing laughed hysterically, blood foam trickling from the corners of her mouth. Fragments of flesh still clung to her teeth. "Zhao Jifeng, your retribution has only just begun." As the golden hairpin pierced her throat, her gaze fixed on me. A tear of blood slid down the corner of her eye. I clenched my fists tightly. Once, I had given Yinxing a chance. But she should never have done it. She should never have harmed Chun Mei. That day, Zhao Zhiheng had merely praised. Chun Mei's tea is truly delicious. Yet she grew jealous because of it. She spread rumors about her in front of Xinqiu. The mansion was lit up brightly. Doctors carrying medicine boxes hurried through the corridors. As Yinxing's body was wrapped and carried out, Zhao Gaolang arrived with the servants. "Stop!" Zhao Gaolang shouted at the old women carrying the body. His hands trembled slightly as he lifted a corner of the white cloth. Yinxing's bloodied and disfigured face was horrifying. Zhao Gaolang's tense shoulders relaxed slightly. "Thank goodness. It's not her." Suddenly, the sound of a teacup shattering echoed from inside the room. The doctor's trembling voice pierced through the curtain. "Young master. His vital meridians are severed. There's nothing more we can do." Zhao Gaolang stumbled, grabbing the corridor pillar to steady himself. "Ugh." I vomited at the right moment, the sound echoing loudly in the deathly silence. Xinqiu looked at me, her voice filled with shock and doubt. "Tao Hong, could it be that you?" I placed my hand on my flat abdomen and bowed my head. "Lady Shen, my menstruation is half a month late. Is it my child?" Zhao Zhiheng clung to this hope like a drowning man, struggling to rise from the pool of blood. "It's not yours," I whispered, watching the light in his eyes fade away. "You worthless slut. You dared to sleep with another man? Tell me, who is that dog of a man?" Xinqiu, enraged, raised her hand to slap me across the face. But a louder slap intercepted her. Smack! Shinchiyu covered her face in disbelief. Father. Why did you hit me? Zhao Gaolang shielded me behind him, his voice firm and resolute. The child in Tao Hong's womb is mine. Everyone present was stunned. I leaned weakly against Zhao Gaolang's chest, trembling all over, still shaken by the ordeal. Master. I almost lost our child. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Shinchiyu's twisted face and Zhao Zhiheng's bloodied lower body. The sky in the mansion was about to change. Zhao Zhiheng was no longer capable of performing his marital duties. My womb was now priceless. I had officially become Zhao Gaolang's concubine. Though I was only a concubine, everyone in the mansion knew it. Zhao Zhiheng is now useless. And the child in my womb is the last hope of the Zhao family. Even Shinchiyu has to greet me. She has to call me auntie. Every time I hear her grinding her teeth, I feel a sense of satisfaction. Zhao Gaolang believes that the vast Zhao mansion cannot be without an heir. So he has been searching everywhere to find someone to bear him a child, sleeping with different women every night. Unfortunately, all his efforts have been in vain. Zhao Gaolang now treasures the child in my womb even more. Meanwhile, Zhao Zhiheng, since losing his heir, has undergone a drastic change in personality. Shinchiyu's once proud face is now covered in bruises. But she still hasn't forgotten her plan to harm me. She believes that if it weren't for me and Yingxing switching places, none of this would have happened. And once the child in my womb is born, the master of the Zhao mansion will change. So she keeps finding ways to poison me. Yet my belly grows larger each day. She could no longer contain herself. On the day of childbirth, the sky was overcast and gloomy. Zhao Gaolang happened to be absent from the mansion. I lay on the wooden bed, my fingers gently tracing the dagger hidden beneath the silk quilt. The cold touch brought me a sense of reassurance. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the western wing, followed by heart-wrenching screams. Fire! The young master's room is on fire. I propped myself up and looked out the window. I saw thick smoke billowing from Zhao Jifeng's courtyard, turning half the sky red. The servants in the mansion were in chaos. The sounds of copper basins and buckets colliding echoed throughout the mansion. Quick! Put out the fire! The young mistress is still inside. Everyone ran to put out the fire. The delivery room was left with only the midwife, Wang Pa. She wiped the sweat from her forehead and was about to come over to check on me. The bed curtain was suddenly pulled open. Shinchiyu stood before me in plain clothes, her hair disheveled, her face covered in soot. She clutched a golden hairpin in her hand, its tip dripping with blood. Behind her, several maids lay scattered in a pool of blood. Young mistress. Mistress. Why did you come here? Wang Pozi just opened her mouth. The golden hairpin sliced through her throat. Blood spattered onto my face. Tao Hong. Why are you so disobedient? She tilted her head to look at me, the cold gleam of the golden hairpin flickering before my eyes. With such a lowly life, why struggle? Why not just die obediently like you did in your previous life? I pretended to be terrified and stepped back. But my fingers secretly clenched the dagger hidden under the bedding. Shinchiyu, she had also been reborn? This realization made my blood boil. Do you think that just because you've climbed onto the master, I can't do anything to you? Shinchiyu's voice suddenly became sharp. Die. As master and servant, I'll let you die the same way you did in your previous life. She grinned savagely, raised the golden hairpin, and stabbed it fiercely into my swollen belly. But the next moment, her laughter abruptly stopped. She stared wide-eyed, unable to believe what she saw. A dagger was lodged in her chest. Shinchiyu. Surprised? I smiled as I twisted the dagger, feeling the blade stir in the flesh. In her terrified gaze, I slowly pulled a soft pillow from under my skirt. The hole in the pillow, pierced by the golden hairpin, was oozing cotton. I gently stroked my flat abdomen. "Madam, I've never been pregnant." Her eyes were filled with resentment. Her lips trembled as she tried to say something, but only a faint huh escaped her lips. I leaned close to her ear and whispered, "In this life, it is you who will die." Xiaolian stepped out from behind the bed curtains. She was holding an infant wrapped in a silk blanket. The child slept soundly, his tiny face pink and delicate, with a hint of beauty in his eyebrows and eyes. I reached out to take him, feeling his soft, warm skin. This child was born to a girl at the drunken immortal pavilion. He was a boy. He was destined to be abandoned from the moment he was born. Xiaolian paid a sum of silver to the madam and bought him. Now, this child has become my own flesh and blood. He is the only heir of the Zhao family. It's all thanks to Xinqiu's fire. Outside, thick smoke still billowed. The fire had spread to the side courtyard, casting half the sky in a crimson glow. Xiaolian stood beside me, her lips curving into a smile as she whispered, "The fire is raging over there. I'll go first. Take care of yourself." I nodded at her, my smile growing deeper. "Go ahead. Be careful." She turned and disappeared into the shadows. The mansion was in chaos, and no one noticed. After she left, I took a deep breath and knocked over the candlestick. The flames instantly licked at the curtains, sending a wave of heat toward me. I looked down at Xinqiu's body on the ground. The blood on her chest hadn't yet dried, still flowing slowly. I dipped my fingers in it, smearing the blood on myself and the child, then tore at my clothes fiercely. Finally, I picked up the child and stumbled out the door. I plunged into the chaotic crowd. "Help! Someone! Help! The young mistress has killed someone!" I screamed desperately, my voice trembling. I looked utterly disheveled. It wasn't until the entire courtyard was reduced to ashes that Zhao Gaoling finally rushed back. I threw myself into his arms, trembling all over, barely able to breathe. "Master, the young mistress is trying to kill me. Save our child." Before I could finish speaking, I closed my eyes and collapsed, lifeless. The officials conducted a thorough investigation. They concluded that the fire had been set by Xinqiu. She had poured tung oil in the west wing and used a candle to ignite it, causing the fire to spread so quickly. When Zhao Gaoling learned the truth, his face turned ashen, and he crushed the teacup in his hand. "That venomous woman!" His voice was filled with suppressed rage. But what good would anger do now? Xinqiu was already dead. Dead beyond a doubt. Zhao Zhiheng had also perished in the flames, his body reduced to ashes. Xinqiu would never know that before she set the fire, I had already ordered men to hide in the shadows. When Zhao Zhiheng returned drunk, my men knocked him unconscious, bound his hands and feet tightly, stuffed a gag into his mouth, and threw him under their bed. It was Xinqiu who burned her husband to death. But I think she will thank me, for at least in the afterlife, they can continue to be together. I leaned weakly against Zhao Gaolang's chest, my face pale. "Master, if it weren't for Wang Lao risking her life to protect us, I and the child would have." As I spoke, I choked up. Tears streamed down my face. All the grievances in the world were unspeakable. Zhao Gaoling gripped my hand tightly, his eyes filled with pity. In the days that followed, I spent my days in tears, and every night I had nightmares. When I woke up, I would cling to the child and cry out, "Young mistress, don't kill me." Ah! Zhao Gaoling hated Xinqiu even more. He didn't even give her a coffin. He had her wrapped in a straw mat and thrown into a mass grave. The Zhao mansion was hung with white flags. Zhao Gaoling, who had lost his son in middle age, was overcome with grief. Overnight, his hair turned completely white. I remained silent, clutching the child tightly, never leaving Zhao Gaolang's side. Zhao Gaolang sat before the coffin, staring blankly as he added paper money to the brazier. My eyes also grew red. Master, I called out softly, pushing the child into his arms. You still have me and the child. Zhao Gaolang trembled, slowly lifting his head. When he saw the child's innocent face, he finally broke down. This 35-year-old man. At that moment, he was as helpless as a child. 3 days later, Zhao Gaolang personally named the child. Let's call him Chengzong. Zhao Chengzong. His rough fingers gently stroked the child's delicate cheek. I lowered my head and kissed the child's forehead. Zhao Chengzong. What a beautiful name. To give Zhao Chengzong a proper identity, Zhao Gaolang disregarded everyone's objections and elevated me to the position of main wife. On the day of Zhao Chengzong's full moon celebration, Zhao Gaolang stumbled into my bedroom, reeking of alcohol. I was holding Zhao Chengzong and humming a lullaby. Upon seeing him enter, I immediately handed the child to the wet nurse waiting nearby. Take the young master down to rest, I whispered, tracing my fingertip across the wet nurse's palm. The wet nurse understood and bowed her head, retreating quietly. Before leaving, she made sure to close the wooden door. The creak of the door had not yet faded. Zhao Gaolang pounced on me like a starving wolf, his heavy breathing hitting my neck. Lady. He sniffed around me drunkenly, then suddenly frowned. Why doesn't your body have that scent anymore? I feigned ignorance. What scent is the master referring to? He squinted his cloudy eyes, trying to recall. It's like the sweet fragrance of honey mixed with pear blossoms. His rough fingers traced my collarbone. It's so pleasant. Only you have that scent. I adjusted my loose collar and turned to pour him a cup of tea. Master must be drunk. Have some tea to sober up. He took the teacup and drank it in one gulp. The teacup hadn't even been placed down yet. He impatiently tore open my clothes, when his face buried itself in my chest. I didn't struggle, but he suddenly froze. Tao Hong. He looked at me in surprise, the drunkenness fading from his eyes. Aren't women supposed to have swollen breasts? How could you? His words trailed off. His pupils contracted sharply, and his voice began to tremble. What did you give me to drink just now? I slowly tied my sash, a smile curving my lips. Didn't you miss the scent of my body, my lord? I touched his burning face. Now smell yourself. Doesn't your body smell wonderful? I was merely curious. What would happen if a man consumed the heart-binding pill? To ensure the potency, I added some extra ingredients, the kind used for breeding horses. I clapped my hands. The door opened once more. Several ragged beggars had been waiting outside the door. 3 days later, when I pushed open the door again, a nauseating stench hit me in the face. Those ragged beggars were still tirelessly writing Zhao Gaolang. Enough. I casually tossed a bag of silver coins on the ground. The coins clattered to the ground, startling the beggars who had been engrossed in their actions. They scrambled off Zhao Gaolang's body, revealing his body covered in bite marks and bruises. I clapped my hands. The beggars immediately stepped back respectfully. I walked forward slowly, knelt down in front of Zhao Gaolang, and lifted his chin with my hand. Husband? Ah. 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 Zhao Gaolang's eyes were no longer clear, and saliva flowed uncontrollably from the corners of his mouth. Suddenly, he reached out and clung to the leg of the nearest beggar. His body convulsed instinctively, and a foolish grin spread across his face. It was clear he was not satisfied. It was also clear he had completely lost his mind. I sought out many doctors for him. After taking his pulse, they all shook their heads and sighed. Master Zhao has suffered the pain of losing his son, which has caused him excessive shock and damaged his mind. They prescribed one soothing formula after another. But none of them worked. Only I knew the truth. That day was the first time I had ever administered medicine to my husband. And I was still inexperienced. My hand trembled. I accidentally added 3 times too much powder. Looking at Zhao Gaolang, who now resembled a 3-year-old child, I could only sigh inwardly and instruct the servants to take good care of him. A month later, in the dead of night, Zhao Gaolang died. He accidentally knocked over the candlestick. By the time the servants discovered it, his room was already engulfed in flames. Fortunately, with the experience from the previous fire, the flames were quickly brought under control. Apart from Zhao Gaolang being burned to death, no other areas were affected. Thankfully, the items left over from the previous funeral in the mansion were still intact. The plain white curtains, the brand new mourning robes, and even the coffin were all ready-made. They were the ones Shinchiyu hadn't used. Not a single thing had been wasted. On the day of the funeral, I wore mourning attire and wept uncontrollably before the crowd. The women who came to pay their respects approached to comfort me. Poor thing, so young and already a widow. Madam, please take care of yourself. The entire Zhao family depends on you. I nodded weakly, letting tears soak through my front. I portrayed the misery of a widow and orphan with heartbreaking intensity. Only after the last guest had left did I slowly rise and walk alone toward the spirit hall. In the flickering candlelight, I looked at the Zhao family tablets filling the hall and finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. End of story.